today we're gonna talk about chapter 2 and chapter 6. So chapter 2 is easier, I feel like, for you guys, and chapter 6 is very conceptual. So this is just a start off joke. So you can see the little girls changing her mood during the week, and it kind of works for everybody. So we are in this circle, especially for our summer sessions. It's very intense, and we have 6-hour lectures in a week. So I want everybody to try their best to keep it up, okay? So I want to talk about a little bit about our software project. So basically, we had studied the accounting process last class. So this project gonna be started with the journal entry, and we're gonna have part 1 and part 2 around this. And then we're gonna have part 3 around the post ledger and trial balance. In addition, we have part 4, maybe creating the adjusting journals and the financial statement. So let's do a little recap about the last class, right? So we talk about the impact of the information revolution. We talk about the purpose of accounting and information customers. And we compare the advantage of computerized bookkeeping system and the disadvantages of traditional accounting models. And then we talk about the solving problem for this scenario can be the database approach. So, and we talk about the event orientations for the database approach. And we also talk about the role for the future accounting professional. So, what about this class? What kind of topic we're gonna touch in this class? So we're gonna distinguish between information and data. What's the difference between these two concepts? And then we will explain some important concept that will be used throughout the lectures, right? About the hierarchy data, field, record keys, coding system, types of files, data processing cycle. This is one of the very important things, the data processing cycle. And we're going to talk about the data input, the file organization, file access, file update options. And then we're going to talk about the batches and online processing. So then we're going to talk about the system, right? Accounting is what we talked last week. Information and system is what we're going to talk this class, okay? So I have some class participation questions for you guys. So what is the main differences between data and information?
Data is like unprocessed fact. Unprocessed fact. They are useless until further processing. Meanwhile, information is the data made meaningful. They give like a good example in the book. Like, for example, if you go to you walk out the door and then you ask your neighbor like about their name, their phone number. So all represent an extensive collection of data, but they are essentially useless until the data until you go into what was called like the process of alphabetizing the data, because if not, it's not, So now if you have like their name, their phone number, and you put them in order of the last name of resident, now the data become useful. Basically, it's like yeah.
Okay, that's very good. It's Vladimir, isn't it?
Yes, Vladimir.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about like what Van Meer said is very true. So, but let's talk about the definition wise. What is data and what is information? Usually we call raw data. Do you guys ever heard about this expression before? Right? So because of it's not processed, it's some factual information. And without processing, it can be meaningless. For instance, the process that Van Meer talked about is actually similar to census try to collect the data. They send a mail to you, ask you to go online, fill the information, right? Before you do anything with it, it's just a row of data entry. But when they aggregated it by the zip code, by the county, by the states, it's become a meaningful data, right? So that's called information. And information is different from the data. So the processed data can be called as information. And then this is leading to the information system process data become useful. I would like to, from this video, right? Actually, she said relevant information is powerful, not just the information. Like if you give me some information about the floor plan of the building I live in, I have no use of it. This is not relevant to me, neither to the teaching or to the study I'm doing, right? So I don't need that information. So what are the quality make the information meaningful to the users? The first is relevant, and then it has to be reliable. So it's say information is powerful. Information is not powerful unless it become a knowledge, right information delivered to the right time in the right manner, and then it become wisdom or powerful. So this is called information value chain. So next, we want to talk about the entity, field, attribute, record, and file. So anybody can explain what is entity?
Entity?
Yeah.
So an entity is an object, person, place, or event.
Okay. How about the field?
A field is a group of related bytes.
I can say attribute describe the inventory feature of any entity.
Okay. So what is record?
Vladimir, it's a group of related fields that makes up a record.
Okay. And what is file?
Oh, sorry. Do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay. It's Mahanur. So a file is a group of logical records.
Okay. That's very accurate. You guys basically checking it from the book. But those are all like accurate definitions, right? So let's talk about the hierarchy of data. Start with bit, and then byte, and then field. Come after with any guess?
Record.
Okay.
Yes.
Record.
Yes. Record, and then
File.
Okay. And the different file construct the database. So let's talk about this one by one, right? 0, 1, 0, 1 to express. And then the beat become byte, and byte is the character, right? After that, we have the field. What kind of different series of byte become the field? One example is the order ID. Like this is the order table, the table of the order, right? And we can see there is attribute. After that, we can have record, like order number 1, which is a record of the attribute under different entries. After that, we have a file, like order file. Using the different file, like order, sales, we have a database based on certain entities, or in this case called divisions, right? So this is the hierarchy of data. Next, we're gonna talk about the field format. There are many formats of the field. So first we talk about the numeric. So it's the integers and real numbers. For instance, in this table right next to it, the quantity is the numeric field, okay? There are text. So in this example, product is the text, right? Currency, this is, doesn't really need to talk much about it. And the date or time. So ballooning is more like true, false, yes, no. Can be only one of two possible values, or 1, 0. And then there are counters. Counters means you increase every one with a new record. Kind of like a continuous kind of record number to avoid the double entry. And then there are bloops for like pictures and graphs and media data, stuff like that.
Professor,
Question? Yes.
can you explain counter again?
Counter. So it's like automatically increased by 1. See, if we have a sales today at 3 p.m., then I have another transactions at 5 p.m., right? The first one is gonna be on the record as 1, and then the one happened after at 5 p.m. gonna be the 2. So it's automatically increased by 1 each time with a new record.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Hello, Professor.
Yes.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah.
Thank you, because I get there's some problem. I don't hear very well, so the reason I try to test to see if
Okay, so which part did you didn't hear?
No, I don't know if it's my connection. Like it's like when you talk, it's like a cutting. I don't get the explanation.
Do everybody have this problem?
Because like a cutting is like
Everybody hear me breaking up?
No.
Okay, so this is your connection. Okay. Try to quit and join again.
okay. Do you want me? Okay, quick and join again.
Yes. Quit
Okay.
and join again. Okay. So next part, we're gonna talk about record keys. So there are many keys, and this is a very important part of our study, and this will definitely be on the both midterm and finals. Okay. So we talk about primary key first. What is primary key? Primary key is a field that's used to uniquely identify the record in the file. And then we have candidate key. Candidate key is any unique identifier of the record. Like social security number, nobody gonna have duplicate social security numbers. So it can be a unique identifier in this record. Then we have composite key. Two or more fields that can together uniquely identify a record. So using this example is like student ID and courses. Like saying your RUID and this course number will identify that you are in this AIS class, right? So only your RUID cannot tell which class are you taking. Only the course ID cannot identify which class are you in. Both of them together can identify you are taking this AIS class right now, right? It also called kind of like, don't confuse this with like candidate key, okay? Another one is non-key attribute. What that means? So there are a lot of information in both of the tables, right? So there are some things that any field is not the primary key, is non-key attribute. So in the table 2, we can see actually both student ID and course ID are primary key, okay? So next we're going to talk about the secondary key. So it's a non-key field or attribute used to sort the file or table to answer the queries. Like how many students' last name is Wang in this class, right? You can do the query like this, right? And then the output gonna be 0, right? Stuff like that. And we will learn more about this in chapter 6, okay? Next, we'll talk about the coding system, right? It's sequential code, block code, group code, and dynamic code. So sequential code is like the record. It's like a sequential numbers. So like invoices or like check that you write from the bank, you're gonna see is sequentially, right? To avoid the error and duplications, right? So if there are 2 same check number issued by same person, you know one of them definitely is a fraud, right? And then block code. This is a good example. Like account numbers, we have like 100 to 199 is asset, 200 to 299 is liability, 300 to 399 is income, and 400 to 499 is expense. This is a perfect example of block code, right? And then we have group code. So because some people might be using the positions of the digit to tell the information. Another example could be your RUID. So the first 2 digits is the year that you enroll, right? So this is called a good example of like group code. And the last one is the combination with letters and numbers, and each of them using as a different meaning. Like for instance, this one on the screen means LCD TV. That's the product, right? And then the module number following by the color and the manufacturer. So the company is LG, right? So next, we will talk about the file type. So we have master file. Master file is contain the relative permanent information, right? Can be about the product, customers, employees, etc. And then we have transaction file. The transaction file is store the transaction information, and its relative temporary file probably will be deleted after it transferred to the update to the master file. So in this process, right, we have data input. Data input become the transaction file, and transaction file update the master file. And then there will be references table, right? You can get access it, but it will not update very frequently. It only update periodically. For instance, so we have a transaction happen, and which this like we buy stuff from the vendor. Go transaction happen like see we get raw material from vendor A, and we paid $500, like this transaction, right? So the vendor A's information is supposed to be saved in the reference file. And then we use the reference file to do a periodically update if we have, like saying, we don't get stuff from vendor A anymore, we get stuff from vendor B. So when this changes, we update our reference table at that time. And then there are two more other type of file. First is history file, which is all transactions and master file. And then we have archival kind of files that as the reference or legal purpose. Like, for instance, we're not supposed to store out our ledgers at least for like 10 years. Some regulation like that. So those are history files. And then we have backup files. So in the business process, a lot of things, like a lot of risk, especially like cybersecurity risk, right? To enhance the cybersecurity protection for the companies, they have to have some backup files in order to make sure if they got hacked, they still have their information that they need, right? So cybersecurity measures is kind of related to this. So next class participation question for this chapters. So what is the main differences between batch process and online processing?
The batch process is the collection and process in batching group, like while the online process is a interaction that allows the constant interaction between user and the system.
That's very good.
Thank you, Professor.
That's very good. So let's talk about that in details, okay?
Yes, Professor.
So we're gonna talk about the data process cycle. This is another very important thing, definitely gonna be on exam. So there's a sequential steps from data input to information output. As we say, data is raw and can be meaningless, and we only want to get the information which is meaningful to the users. So how is this gonna be working? So first, we have batch process system. So this process a large batches of data periodically. What is a good example of this? A very good example is like if you are an accountant, you sit in the office, right? You got invoices from like the sales or purchase department every single day, right? But you only do your invoices, bookkeeping stuff every 15 days or every month. So this is called larger batcher process, right? So data is collected and processed later, occur daily, weekly, without any human intervention, right? So another good example of this is actually in a lot of countries, like a direct example is in Brazil. They have a very complex tax system in the whole wide world. And they do every people who purchase any goods, it will automatically generate a file that contains a lot of purchase information along with your personal identification, national identification information. So it will update every day to the tax authorities website. And it's tagged in XML format, which is machine readable. And this data is open to the public, which means the national tax authority have very high level data transparency to the general audiences, like a citizen, right? So everything is traceable, everything is timely updated. So daily basis, without the human intervention. So payroll is another example of this typical batch process. By the end of the period, all the employees get paid together. So the basic processes look like this. You have the raw data using the computer to, process it, store it together, and update it together to the master file. Online process system. So this process system is much more advanced because it can process the data immediately. Data collected and processed together, not later. And transactions are handled individually. We don't have batch transactions handled. So a typical example is airline hotel booking system. Right? Each of the booking record will process instantly. The example is you are using your own smart devices anywhere in the world, and it's gonna instantly process at the same time to the system of like airline company, and then update and stored in their database system and become information. So I want to ask another question. Anybody can tell me 5 steps in the data processing cycle. Please tell me your name.
Masiara Sumaro.
Yes, please.
Yes, I give one of the steps is the revenue cycle. You hear me? What was that?
5 steps in data processing cycle.
Business. You're talking about the first step?
5 steps.
Yes, I give you a revenue cycle, expenditure. You know that expenditure cycle?
No. That's not what I'm talking about.
I
Oh, you
think
talk
it's
about.
talking about the 5 steps in the data processing circle.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yes.
Master file.
data.
Oh, you're talking, Fitting? Okay, go ahead, Fitting.
You can go ahead, Vladimir.
No, if you want, is okay. Okay. The 5 step master files, transaction files, reference files.
That's not it, Vladimir.
That's not it.
I try, Sabrina.
Data
Oh,
input.
that's not.
Is
Oh,
it data? Is it data input, data preparation, data processing, file maintenance, and information output, Professor?
Yes. So let's talk about that. So the data input, the data preparations, data processing, file maintenance, and then information output. Okay, this is a sequence steps. For the batch processing system, the data processing cycle looks like this, right? We have data input, we need to update the data preparation, transaction file, and we have reference file to do the data processing, and we use master file to do the file maintenance, and then we have information output. So let's see what's going on for the online processing system. So the data input is directly go to the data processing. And then we just skip the data preparation steps. So what is that implies? What is the implication of this?
That it reduces the number of steps, therefore it's more efficient.
Yes, that's a very good point.
And also it's easier because you're missing the whole data preparation step. So like
Yeah.
you could just directly go into like data processing. And since like file maintenance, yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, well, that's a very good point you are talking about. So, right? So, another thing is, the data preparation somehow is involved with the human intervention, right? As a content, you have to do the things yourself, right? Sometimes you made mistakes, right? So, without the data preparation, everything is processed instantly. That's able to avoid the human error, right? So that's a good part of this. So this is another visualized data processing circle. So you guys can take a screenshot or whatever on this. Probably we're gonna touch this in the exam later on. Okay, so next we talk about the data input. This is the first step in the circle. So we will talk about this step by step, right? So the first step in the data processing. So it's the start point of the business activities. So the data collected in the document, and eventually it will be putting into the system. Right? This is an example of like ERP system, right? This sales order is going to transfer to the system as that format. So the batch data input, data are sequentially going to the system, right? And predetermined point of time. So the basically circle is when the transaction happen, right? There are documents generated and periodically input to the devices, and then we add the data into the system, right? On the other hand, the online data input approach, when the transaction occurs, directly go to the input devices, and then add the transactions to the database, which is faster. So next we will talk about the file organizations and access options. These are very important concepts too. You guys should take notes. Okay? Sequential file. These records are stored sequentially in the order of the primary keys. And the record must be accessed sequentially. So there are two primary methods of file organization and access: sequential and random. Okay? So sequential file organization means that the record in the file are stored in the sequential order of the primary key, and the record can be stored neither in ascending or descending order. Next, we talk about the random files, right? Random file or random access file. So, also referred as direct access file. The records in random file are scattered throughout the storage. Records are not stored in any particular physical order. A hashing routine is used to determine the storage location of the record, which is hard to find, right? To access the particular record, the hashing algorithm is applied to this primary key to determine its storage location. Thus, a random access file is the nice record that can be directly accessed without having traversed n-1 record. Last, we're going to talk about, yes?
I have a question. So you said random access file, the records can be accessed like directly, right? Can you go over how they can be accessed directly? Like, is there like a control find system or something like that?
This is the reach by the query.
Okay, so reach by the query.
Yeah, that's why we learn SQL in this class, right? We want to access certain files, we need to write query about it. Okay?
Thank you so much.
No worries. Well, you're welcome. So the index file. So the last one. This involves a lot of creation of an index which contains the key value and associated storage locations of the record in the file. So using the file index, right, which is faster than random file, but is also slower than the sequential file, right? Because the file index can be accessed and searched very quickly to find the particular record. So next, we will talk about the file update option. And we're still gonna be separated as batch processing and online processing. As we talk about this part of the graph before, right? And then they generated the raw transactions on the file. And periodically it updates to the master file. And there will be listing and error listing. On the other hand, with the online processing, we have much simpler process. We can get the transaction file very fast, and then we will using the transaction processing to update the master file. So by the simple visual aid comparisons, right? So the online processing methodology is way easier. Way less process than the batch processing, right? So then we're gonna talk about the file update options. So there are certain combination of it. So we can see batch data input is sequential when using batch processing, right? But not for the online processing. So the online data input when using the batch processing is sequential, but using online processing is random and indexed. So there is a comparison between the batch and online processing. So the advantage of like batch processing is more efficient use of computer system and personnel when transactions occur sporadically. More control over the input and the process of transaction. So what is the advantage of online processing? Online processing, that master file is always up to date. It's a real-time update. And no separate data preparation step required. And it's fast to access. So, next we will talk about what is system. So, anybody can tell me what is system?
System, Basiara Sumaro.
Yeah.
I think so. System is a collection of elements or components that are organized for a common purpose.
Yeah, that's true. That's right. So let's talk about the system, breaking down a little bit. So what is system? We talk about we have input, process, and output, right? We put data. We use data as input. We use the process, a lot of process, to make the data to the information, which is the output. So what is supporting the process? The supporting thing is the system, right? For instance, we have transactions, we're using the accounting software based on the computer hardware, and then we process it periodically, we generate financial statement. So this is the simple process of how to make data into information. And the supporting in the middle is the system, right? So, system is a set of components that operate together to achieve one or more common objectives. That's exactly the definition that Masiata talked about, right? And then we have system. Within the system, we have subsystem. Subsystem is the component of the system. Like for instance, right? We have like bookkeeping, right? We're probably using Excel, or we probably use Word. We probably use QuickBook. These are all the subsystem, which is the component of it, right? And then we have data input, which means like the transaction stuff like that. And each different system can interact with each other, right? And then we process it as a information output, right? A lot of time, right, when the auditor come in for like doing assurance, right, they want to make sure that the subsystem or the system itself can be reliable, right? So the PCAOB also like have a lot of regulations about different components, the requirement of different components. Like, do they have cybersecurity assurance? Do they issue the opinions about that? How about their internal control? Stuff like that, right? So PC is a system. Data in the file is the input, and then output is the information. So, information system, right? How we think about it. The components, how the system components, which means the subsystem, how they interact with each other. So there should be a lot of some of the subsystem might have problem. Might not working with each other. So avoid those differences. Like optimize the subsystem is very important. As I said last class, I wrote a case study about a manufacturing company, and they have like 3 different ERP systems, right? So how they make sure this system is working coordinatedly is very important. We are talking about the system approaching using an example of sales transaction. For instance, the sales happen, right? We have to process the sale. And then, for instance, for each customer, we have presetted credit line. So there are 10 different purchases happen. And first 9 is okay. But when it's reached to the 10 transaction, the system is gonna generate alert from the approved credit system. Say, sorry, cannot process the purchase, cannot process the sales order because customer reach. Excuse me?
Yeah.
Can you speak louder? Like over the credit line, the automation system gonna tell you that, sorry, we cannot approve your purchase order because you're reaching the credit line, right? So then it generates a report. So the system, and then the control system, and then the other parts of accounting system. How this work? Input become the sales of goods, and then they process the file, the sales, and the process after that we have the output, right? We have the record of the sales, and then we have the output to feed in as the input of the control system, which is the credit line, the control system. And then sensors making to the control comparison, and there is a presetting credit limit, and then active the indication of approve or deny the sales. And then this output feed in as another input in the process sales circle. So let's think about the advantage of taking this a broader view. Like I have a micro view of this system, right? What is the advantage of this? Because the input, process, procedure, control, information required are located, right, in the most appropriate subsystem. Everything is within this very aggregated, same spot kind of system. So the result is subsystems are all logically interact with each other, correlated with each other. So this is basically the major materials for the chapter 2. And let's do a recap questions. What are the 5 steps in the data processing circle?
Hi, Professor. It's Mahanoj. So the 5 steps are data input, data preparation, data processing, and then file maintenance, and then information output.
Exactly. That's very good. Okay. So this is the summary of this class, right? We talk about data and information. So the differences between these two can be on the exam. Okay. Hierarchy of data. Very important. The file record key coding system, the concept you have to remember. There will also be some of the questions from this part. And we also gonna talk about the steps in the data processing cycle, and especially remember the record key part. That one is very important. And then you need to remember the drawbacks of batches versus online processing. The advantage and disadvantages of batches versus online processing. Okay?